Welcome to the AT Parenting Survival Podcast, where you get help and guidance through the chaos of parenting a child with anxiety or OCD. This show is for educational purposes and is not intended to replace the guidance of a qualified professional. Here's your host, child therapist, Natasha Daniels.
Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the AT Parenting Survival Podcast. Today, I want to talk to you about something that many of us are dealing with or will deal with or have dealt with, which is when you're more motivated than your child to fight OCD. That's really common because we're not in the thick of things. We are often able to see things intellectually and less emotionally, and we can see what needs to be done, and we can see the crisis in front of us, and our child is often not on the same page, which then can be really frustrating. And ironically, it can actually backfire and make our kids worse when we're more motivated than they are, and we don't kind of autocorrect and watch our pace. We're going to talk all about this. But before I jump in, I do want to thank NoCD for sponsoring this episode. NoCD offers affordable, effective, convenient therapy, and they're available in the US and outside of the US. You can schedule your free 15-minute consultation to see if NoCD is a right fit for you and your child. Just go to treatmyocd.com. That is treatmyocd.com. I'll leave a link in the show notes as well. I also want to mention that my free Anchor series is happening this week. So if you have not registered, you can do that at atparentingsurvivalseries.com. That is atparentingsurvivalseries.com. And we're going to talk a lot today about how that series can help you, because there are things that we can do, but it's around us and how we show up and how we interact. And actually, you're going to hear today how that plays a huge impact on our kids' journey with anxiety and OCD. And so let's just jump into it, shall we? All right. So I'll have to just say that it's pretty rare, not impossible, but it's very rare that I see a child who's more motivated to crush their OCD than their parent. That does happen, especially as you get older and you're a young adult and maybe your parents deny there's a mental health issue. So that happens a lot in adulthood. But if you're listening to my podcast and you're a parent and you're in my resources, most likely you're super caring and you're really motivated to help your child. That's the audience I get, which I love, by the way. I was actually just talking to a friend, and she works with adults with OCD, and we had such a different perspective on parents and family support. And eventually in our conversation, I had this aha with her, and so did she, that of course we have a different perspective, because the people that are coming to me, who are listening to this podcast, who are joining my AT parenting community, who are taking my free series, who are digesting all my stuff, are super caring parents who want to help their kids. And when she's in the adult world, she's dealing with the OCD sufferer who often has families that are not involved, not engaged, and not understanding their struggles. So kind of interesting, but you're here because you care. And we're going to talk about how sometimes caring too much can actually backfire, which I know is so frustrating because obviously I get this myself, having 3 kids with these struggles too. So we want to start with what's really going on when our kids are pushing back against working on their OCD. It's very easy to just get stuck in that frustration of, why are you not helping yourself? There is a clear answer to this problem, and you're not walking towards the solution, you're walking further into the problem. Why are you doing that? And intellectually and rationally, that makes sense that we would be frustrated and wonder why. But when we're looking at the disorder and how it manifests, it also makes sense that OCD is really overwhelming to work on. And it's super scary to do the things that you are learning are important to do when we're trying to minimize the impact OCD has has on someone's life. And so for us, it can look like a very prescribed to-do list of resist compulsions. And if you've been in my AT parenting community, you're going to know this to-do list. If you're new to my podcast, welcome. And you may not know these things. And that's kind of another thing that we're going to talk about is where to start. But we know with the to-do list that it's resisting compulsions, or it's maybe we can go back further, delaying compulsions, resisting compulsions, doing the opposite of compulsions, doing exposure response prevention, possibly finding a therapist, possibly getting on the right medication, having the family pull back their enabling of OCD and their accommodations for OCD. That's the recipe. A super simple recipe if we just look at it like it's a punch sheet that we just have to cross off. But that's not how it is for our kids. And that's the first step in dealing with this issue of you being more motivated than your child is looking at it from their perspective. And I speak about this from my own experience too, that this is hard for me. A lot of times you'll see that I pick episode topics based on what I'm going through, which totally sounds selfish. Eventually, I won't have any themes or podcast episodes to do because everything will just be glorious. That's probably not true, and that's okay. But I try to speak from my heart. And so a lot of times I'll tap into what's been a struggle for me, or what's a theme that's come up, or what's an issue that everyone is talking about in the AT parenting community. And that's where I get my podcast topics from. If you're in the AT parenting community, you can message me and you can say, hey, could you do a podcast on this topic? And more often than not, if I haven't done it before and it's general enough, I'll do it. So between the parents in the AT parenting community and my own struggles, that's where these podcast topics are coming from. And this one is near and dear to my heart. I've done a lot of episodes recently on our parental mindset because it's something we talk about a lot in the community, in my online community, and it's something that is a daily practice for me and a struggle. And a lot of times my kids are not motivated to work on their issues at the caliber that I want them to. And what I've noticed recently is that it's not that they're not working on it. They're doing the best they can with what they've got. And that I'm looking at it from a very sterile, clinical to-do list, and they're like knee deep in the mud. And shifting your perspective and looking at what is your kid's perspective? What are they dealing with? And maybe they're just so in and over their heads that they're just trying to survive. And they're just trying to get by hour, not even day by day. And our ask might be just too much for them. And that is hard because I don't know about you, but when I hear that, my body, my anxiously wired body wants to spiral, and it wants to be like, oh no, then what are we going to do? Because I'm a fixer. I'm a go-getter, a fixer, a doer. Like I'm not avoidant. I am action-based. That's my personality. You might have a different personality. In fact, I'm sure a lot of you have a different personality, but we want to tap into that. How do we handle problems? Because that's a little window into how you're showing up for your child's OCD. And we go into that in the Anchor series. We deep dive into who you are, how you show up to problems, how you show up to crises, how you show up to struggles and chaos, how you handle mental health issues, your own mental health issues. We talk about your own triggers from your childhood, your relationships. It's a deep dive. It's a super deep dive in your stuff in order to show up clearly for your child. If you don't know where you're operating from, and a lot of people don't, you're not going to understand all these emotions. And so for me, I've always been a fixer. I've been a fixer since I was a little kid. I was the middle child, classic fixer. I had two siblings older than me, one sibling younger than me, right in the middle. I had a dysfunctional family and dysfunctional childhood with a father with bipolar disorder, a mother with, I think, an undiagnosed borderline personality disorder, and a lot of emotional neglect and a little bit of physical abuse. And my role in that family, and you have a role in your family too, whatever dynamic that was to fix. We have a problem, I'm going to fix it. My parents are deteriorating, let me clean the house. You know, we don't have a lot of money, let me not order any food if we go to a restaurant. I was always thinking about how to like balance the seesaw and keep the equilibrium. So, of course, when my kids are having mental health problems, one, highly genetic, so not really shocking, but I don't want my kids to be like members of my family, my nuclear family growing up, and some extended family members. And so there is this need to fix on a level that's pretty intense because I am a fixer by nature. If I have a computer problem, I'll stay. Actually, this happened last night. Um, Dealing with all these legal things, and I'm trying to like do this legal document, and they want me to hyperlink in the document. That took me literally all night to figure out how do you hyperlink in a document on WordPress. Anyway, that's my problem. But I didn't just give up and be like, I'll have to give this to my tech guy. I was like, there's got to be an answer for this. And I stayed up until like 1 a.m. Googling it and figuring it out and learning HTML code to hyperlink. Now I know, and I'll know forever. And that's done. That's my personality, is I got to figure it out. There's a solution. And that can't be like you can't translate that over to kids with anxiety and OCD issues. I would love to do that, but I can't, and you can't either. And so that's just one personality style. You might be an avoider, and that's another personality style. But you're motivated to change them. I'm trying to see how would that work with you're more motivated than your child to fight OCD. Maybe you're an avoider and you want to avoid all the reality of it and you just want to fix it. So get into your own head a little bit and figure out what's showing up for you in this. So that's mine. And then we have to understand that there is a resistance that's baked into this disorder. It's very easy to see it as defiance. It's very easy to see it as laziness. It's easy to see it as a victim mentality. Sometimes I go there where I feel like my kids have a victim mentality and they need to grab their, what is that expression? Their boots by the strap or whatever. And I have to remind myself that this is hard. And just because I had my own mental health issues, I had panic disorder, I have generalized anxiety disorder, I definitely have social anxiety disorder. Just because I have my own struggles or I've overcome a lot of my struggles doesn't mean that I get to say that I know what they're going through. And it's the same thing for you. If you've had your own mental health struggles, it doesn't mean that you know what your child's going through. Because until we are literally in someone's head, we will never know what they're experiencing. And so we have to shift our approach to meet our kids where they're at. And man, is that hard. Because for some of you, it can feel like giving up. And if you're like me, who is a fixer, to accept where they're at feels like giving up. But it's not. And we're going to talk all about it. We're going to take a quick break. And after the break, we're going to go into why it's not and how do we show up mentally for this when our kids are not motivated. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
It's time we put help directly in our kids' hands. Introducing Crushing OCD course for kids and teens.
It was way more helpful than all the other therapy we've ever done because we didn't really know what to do. So we weren't really doing it before. So the course helped to figure out what the exposures are and how to do them.
We're not in therapy and find it really hard to find an ERP trained therapist here. So we're currently with the public health service, but again, they don't seem to be trained in ERP. It's filled that gap that we don't have that was needed.
This was really well timed for us to use between therapists and to help us get off to a good start with this new practice.
It was easy to use. I was able to do it from my phone or also on the computer.
There's different ages, so there were younger kids, there were teenagers, and so that was really nice too, to have a variety of ages where it wasn't just geared towards younger kids or older kids. It was a nice variety.
it's helpful for our kids to hear it from this like third party as opposed to just us saying it.
I really like the offense and defense method. I love working on poking at OCD while it's sleeping. It makes it a little bit easier to do, and it's kind of fun. I'm planning on using it to work on my fear of like holding or touching batteries and stuff like that.
So it was really helpful, and I think a lot of other kids would like it. I thought that I was like the only one who had worrying about the weather and stuff. And then there was somebody else on there who worried about the same thing, which was really helpful.
Seems less scary to work on stuff now that I've watched this class, and I'm more interested to work on it.
I like trying to do more exposures still, and before I wasn't, I just didn't want to do them.
I've worked on some of my bigger compulsions and been successful.
I realized that it was helpful to do like the exposures. Before it was like really, really hard. It's still hard, but it's helpful to know that I need to do them.
Before there would be a lot of battles about it, so it is definitely less loggerheads.
Really, really good course and super helpful.
Definitely would recommend this. It's really easy to follow. It's nice bite-sized videos. I really like the worksheets that go along with it, and I think it's really helpful.
To learn more about this course and register your child or teen, go to atparentingsurvivalschool.com.
Welcome back. All right. So before the break, I was talking about how we have to accept where our kids are at, meet them where they're at, and how that can sometimes feel like a betrayal. It could feel like giving up on your child. It could feel like a failure, like a parenting failure or a personal failure, or failing your child. What shows up for you when I say, meet your child where they're at? When you clicked on a podcast that's titled, you're more motivated than your child to fight OCD. So clearly indicates that possibly your child is not motivated to fight their OCD right now. And I'm telling you to meet them where they're at, which is to not fight their OCD. How does that sit with you? Because I know, especially in my public social media, not my AT parenting community members, because they tend to be within the first month or two much more educated than the general public. And so we have definitely, I can tell who's a member and who's not, even when someone's posting on my public social media, because AT parenting community members are more knowledgeable. Like within a month, if they do, some of the stuff that we have available to them and they take the classes, show up for our calls or watch the replays, they know very quickly a lot of the foundational stuff. And they'll get that we do have to meet our kids where they're at, and that it's not an opinion or a decision. It's reality whether we want to embrace it or not. But parents who are not in my community do not understand that sometimes. Sometimes they do. But I'll get comments like, "You want me to just give up if I say things like this?" Or "You just want me to fail as a parent?" Or "You want my child to just stay in their bedroom 24/7? You think that's okay? You want me to just accept that?" And it's not, and I say this, I've said this in other episodes too, it's not about that. Whether you want it or not, or you don't, it's not an opinion. It's an objective reality. Whatever is happening at your house right now is an objective reality, whether you want to see it that way or not. And the sooner we are able to see the objective reality of this is what's happening, no matter what, whether I want to fight it or not, or, push my child or not, this is the reality. This is the baseline of what's happening in my house right now. Now, what do I do with this? And that's the hard part, because when we're more motivated than our kids, a couple of things can happen. One, we can become, and by the way, I have been all these people that I'm going to describe. So you are in good company if you're like, that's me. It's been me too. I've been all of these. One is you become a super cheerleader. And so you take one for the team. I saw my mom do this as I was growing up with my dad with bipolar. She was a super cheerleader. She would be pulling him out of bed and getting him to see the light and go take a walk and get him to eat. And so a super cheerleader may be someone who's like, I'm going to just spend 24/7 coaching them and cheering them and coaxing them and is that a compulsion? Don't do that compulsion. And you can do this. And did you take your medicine? And are you going to therapy? And what are your thoughts? Are you having intrusive, right? Super cheerleader, positive, but super cheerleader, coming from that fixer mentality that I was talking about before. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you have somebody who is completely overwhelmed and is anxious and is coming with a strong energy as well in more of a negative way. You need to fix this. You need to, not do this compulsion. You need to do your therapy. And so kind of the other side of the coin of the super cheerleader. I don't know. I don't have a name for it. And you can bounce back and forth. And I know I have, where I've been that super cheerleader and then I've been that super aggressor. And then some of us move into apathy, where we're kind of like, you know what? It's your life. Do whatever you want. I don't care anymore. And that's different than what I'm about to talk about. Saying, I don't care anymore. I throw my hands up. I give up on you. Maybe not verbally saying that to our kids, but having that thought in your head, that's different than what I'm about to talk about. All of those things I have been, and maybe you have too. And sometimes you can be those three things in one day, in an hour. You could be those things. So it's not like a persona that we wear all the time. But what is ideal? And what I've learned from my journey raising 3 kids with anxiety and OCD and still in the thick of it is that whether I want to, I'm trying to think of the right words, accept where my child is at or not, they're still there. And so what can I do with that? And the big key is, number 1, acceptance. This is where I'm at. And it may not go away for a while. And I think that's been a big shift for me lately, is opening up my eyes and saying, I've been walking 2 steps ahead and I need to slow down my pace. I need to stop walking so that I can see where my child is at. Are they even moving? Are they behind me? Are they hiding like 5 miles behind me? Where are they? Where is your child? Pause and think about that. Where's your child, teen, or young adult at with their mental health? Are they aware of it? Are they willing to talk about it? Do they want therapy? Do they need medication? Do they want medication? Do they want you to talk about it? Do they want your help? Do they not want your help? Where are they at? Because we have to go back from where we're walking and we have to stop and we have to see where they're at. And that's where we have to start, to explore where they're at and to gently motivate them from the space where they're at. And that's hard because for me, that was accepting that my son right now, my front burner issue, actually we got 2 front burner issues right now because my daughter is struggling too right now. I mean, when it rains, it pours. So I'm dealing with both of their issues. And I had to accept that, my son with ARFID, he may always have eating issues. So one of the things that I've done, which may or may not help you, it may not help you, but it is helping me, is just moving into acceptance of it is what it is. That's a hard one. And maybe you're not there yet, especially if you have younger kids. My son's 15. He's had severe ARFID issues since he was 8. It actually started at 8 months old. So I'm pretty sure it's PANS. But when he was 8, I had this thought of, we're going to fix this. We're going to get him the right therapy. We're going to get him on the right medications. I'm going to, get him to eat all these foods and we're going to get through this. My oldest daughter, had sensory processing disorder and had ARFID because of that. And I was able to support her and get her through it. And she is fine now and she can eat. He has ARFID because of anxiety and OCD. And it has not improved. It's gotten better with some medications. Then he had to go off the medications. Then now it's worse again. And so moving into acceptance which I couldn't have done when he was 8, but I can do at 15 because now it's been half his life, even more because it started at 8 months old. Then we had a reprieve until he was 8, that this may be part of his life. And that's not doom and gloom. And it doesn't mean I'm not going to try and give him support and help him, but it has helped me lower the bar. There's not like an end that I'm trying to run to, like it's a marathon. I'm trying to get to the finish line. It's like this is part of his journey, and it may be part of his journey. And I'm just that moving into acceptance for me at his age right now has kind of helped me take off a little bit of the internal stress and pressure I was putting myself under. Because then I'm like, this is his life. It's not my life. I'm here to support him, and I'm only one character in his story. His story is going to go on to have other chapters that may or may not involve me, hopefully, right? Because I want him to have a full life. But if it doesn't, that's okay too. And so asking, where is he at? What does he need right now from me? And that's a hard thing for us to look at. And it might involve you asking your child. And when I say child, I mean any age, even if you have a young adult. It might mean asking them, how can I support you? And they might say, do nothing. I want nothing. You can't support me. My daughter's having a hard time. My younger daughter's having a hard time right now with a lot of depersonalization and panic and some mood issues. And when I say, how can I support you? How can I help you? She says, you can't do anything. And I have to honor that. That doesn't mean that I, stop paying for therapy and advocate for medication options, but she doesn't want me to do anything. And I have to honor that. Me nagging her and being like, you need to get up more, or you need to go out more. That super cheerleader isn't going to land well with her. Now, that might land well with some of your kids. They might want that and enjoy that or find it helpful, but you won't know until you ask them. And so the first step is really having an honest conversation and just say, I see that you're struggling and I love you and I want to support you in whatever way I can. And they might not want your support. Now, that doesn't mean on the flip side that you don't stop enabling OCD in a systematic way. I do have a whole course on that. Ellie Leibowitz's SPACE program is a therapy approach for the parent only to slowly and systematically pull back your own accommodations of OCD, because OCD will get you to do compulsions without you even knowing sometimes. And you can check that out. I do have a SPACE study guide course at atparentingsurvivalschool.com. If you are an AT Parenting community member or you're thinking of joining us, we are going to be opening up our doors in just a few weeks, so get on the wait list. You do get that study guide course and a ton of other courses for free access as a member. You can get on our wait list at atparentingcommunity.com. But I say all that because I want you to know I'm not saying that you throw your hands up. I'm just saying what you're doing with your child. You still do your part. And that's what I've realized with my kids is I can do a lot on my own. It may not be what I want. I want my son to be doing food exposures 24/7. I want to see him eating 3 meals a day. I want to see him doing literally any of the homework assignments he gets from his ARFID therapist. I want to see that. I want to see him taking his supplements that I spent a fortune on that are sitting on the counter untouched. I want to see that. But that's not my lane. I put out the supplements. I pay for the therapy. I sometimes remind him of maybe, something that he was supposed to be doing over the week, but not too much, because what I'm noticing is that shuts him down and it shuts our relationship down. That we could have what we want them to do, but then there is the reality of what they want to do. Now, on the flip side, all hope is not lost, because there is so much in your lane. There is so much in your lane that you do get to control. And the first one is your own emotions and your own mindset of how you're showing up to this. Because when we show up with our own angst and our own anxiety, it gets in the way and it shows up when we're trying to help our kids. And so that is the first step. That's what we go into in the Anchor series, is we talk a lot about anchoring yourself, as evidenced by the name. And you can't anchor yourself if you don't know what is making you unanchored, which comes with a lot of the stories we tell ourselves, a lot of our own baggage, a lot of our own stress, a lot of our own anxiety. So for me, a lot of my angst was coming from the fear that he's going to be G-tubed, fear that he's not going to be able to function in society. I've got similar fears. They're different fears, but similar in intensity for my younger daughter right now. And understanding where that's coming from that helps me anchor myself and show up for them in a more grounded way. And so I can choose how I show up for their problems. Do I get angry because I'm stressed? Am I calm? Am I regulated? Do I ask myself in those moments, what do they need from me? That's what I teach you in the Anchor series, is asking yourself in those moments. We have kind of I have a grounding process that I teach you in the Anchor series. And then the ultimate question is, what does my child need from me right now? Not what they want, because sometimes they want you to do a compulsion or accommodate the OCD, but what do they need from me right now? For my son, he needs me to be quiet. He needs me to just be quiet and be present. And I haven't been. I've been kind of a nag when his nights and days are flipped over, and I'm upset about that. And I'm telling him that's going to impact your eating. You aren't getting good sleep, and that's going to impact your appetite, which is impacting your mood. He doesn't care, and he doesn't want to hear that from me. So even though it's true, I could take steps, like turn off the Wi-Fi, and right. So this is not a passive approach. It's just, what can I do versus what am I churning my energy out for that's not productive? And so I can do these things. I can do these objective things. I can turn off the Wi-Fi. I can not nag him because it's futile. If I'm not getting any returns on my nagging, maybe I need to salvage that energy and put it into something else. You know what I mean? So analyze what's effective and what's not. You telling your child X, Y, and Z, how is that landing? Is it working? Is it effective? Or is it shutting them down? And then what can you do? Right? So we can show up with intention. That's easier said than done. We can show up regulated. Again, easier said than done, at least for me. And show up with clarity of what do they need from me in this moment, which is sometimes nothing. And sometimes they need you to not do that compulsion with them. Sometimes they need you to not give them that extra soap. It's not what they want, it's what they need. And then working on my own mindset of, how do I take care of myself through this? Because it is exhausting, and your body will let you know that you're exhausted, even if your mind will not. Your body won't lie. So what's your body telling you? It's an indication that no matter what your brain is telling you, you're overwhelmed and stressed. It's funny how the mind and body work, because I'll think I'm fine. Like my brain is like, don't let her know. Just tell her she's fine. And then my body will betray me. I think I talked about this last episode when I was at the OCD conference. I was so mad at my body because my brain was like, we are killing it, Natasha. You are doing so good. You're crushing it. You're in Chicago by yourself. You're taking Ubers. You're independent. You're presenting. And my stomach was like, nope, we're crapping ourselves. That was too graphic. And I was so mad at my stomach for betraying me. But the body doesn't lie. My son had to get his wisdom teeth out yesterday. And I've got a couple of things about that I wanted to talk to you about. But it's interesting because he said to me, one of his main fears has always been needles in an extreme way, like to the point where he's afraid of bees because, he's going to get stung, cacti, and we live in the desert because he's going to get poked. It's all about being poked. So needles, huge, huge issue historically for him as well. And they were going to put him out for the dental work, which they always do anyway, but he needs to be put out for like literally anything that goes into his mouth, because his ARFID makes him have his ARFID and his fear of choking and his gag reflex. They're all interrelated. And so any dental work is really, really tough. And so they went and he said to me yesterday when we were talking about it and debriefing, he said, it's weird. I wasn't nervous about the IV, but I was shaking so hard. And it's like he's gotten to that age where his brain was like, don't let him know that he's nervous. But the body won't lie. So check your body. We talk a lot about that in the Anchor series, is these clues, these physical clues that let us know that we're not okay. And part of the anchoring process that I teach you in the Anchor series is body scanning and seeing what your body is telling you, because your body will not lie. Going back to yesterday, I just kind of want to end on an example of this, of kind of give you a little like flavor of what I'm talking about with this mindset shift. So I was very worried about him getting his wisdom teeth out because he has ARVID, and anything having to do with his mouth is really risky because he's already very underweight. He had lost a whole bunch of weight after he got sick when we came back when we were in Alaska maybe a month ago. He got really sick on that trip and lost a bunch of weight because he doesn't have weight to spare. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And then in a few weeks, we have his wisdom teeth are going to have to come out. And what a nightmare that's going to be. We're not really through the thick of it yet. So I don't want to like jinx myself. But my anxiety was showing up, and I was thinking it's going to be horrible. He may not even be able to get to the office because he's gotten pretty agoraphobic. And so and he's got this thing about being in the car longer than 10 minutes. He thinks he's going to throw up because we got like a vicious cycle of ARFID and emetophobia. And so I get in the car and I kind of do my anchor steps, which I talk about my anchor series. And I did a body scan and I realized my brain is saying, we're fine. We got this. And my body was like, we are freaking out. And all my thoughts, once I tuned into them, which I teach you in the Anchor series, like how do you tune into your thoughts and bring some awareness? Because a lot of times it's happening and we're unaware. But once I tuned in, I was like, oh my gosh, I am worried about getting to the office because it's 35 minutes and I think that he's going to bail. And I'm like, what happens if he says he's sick? What happens if he throws up in the car? Because that's happened before. Do I turn around or do I take him anyway? What if he refuses to get out of the car when we get there? Then they're going to give him an IV. What if he refuses to go to the office? Or what if he has a anxiety attack and he refuses to get his procedure done? And then I was like, and what if he gets his procedure done and then he can't eat and he starves? Like, will I have to take him to the hospital? Will he have to get an IV? Because what if he doesn't eat for like 6 or 7 days? So then I realized I haven't even gotten out of my driveway yet. This is not helpful. None of it's happened. Some of it can happen. And so I moved into acceptance. I was like, if he doesn't want to do it, he doesn't want to do it. If he throws up in the car and he wants to turn around, we'll turn around. I'm not going to fight that. If he can't do the IV, then we'll go home. And once I moved into acceptance of like, this may or may not happen. If I have to take him to the hospital, I'll take him to the hospital. But that thought's not helpful right now because it's not happening right now. And I did relax and I kind of re-anchored my thoughts onto something else completely because I didn't need 35 minutes more of my body trying to fight this. And then my brain, like halfway there, my brain started to be like, will he ever get an apartment by himself? Do you think he'll be able to go to college or will he take? And I just saw what I was doing because I am working on like showing up and being really aware, which is what I teach you in the Anchor series. I was like, stop. You are taking him to the oral surgeon right now. We don't need to worry about college. He's 15. It doesn't mean I'm never going to not worry about it, but did I really need to add that to my plate in that moment? And that's what my brain does, and maybe yours does it too. It's like when I'm anxious about something, it's like, pile in. The doors are open. She's anxious. Let's get all the other stuff too. And I'm just shutting that door. I'm like, no, I'm not thinking about that. And because I was aware of it and I was really tuned in, I was able to shut that down and get back into my Zen mode. And he surprised me. He did phenomenal. All that worry would have been for naught. And sometimes it will be for, it was like you're psychic and you're like, all my fears came true. And that does happen to me. But whether you want to worry about it beforehand or not doesn't make the outcome any different. And me just accepting where he's at and just accepting that he may not be able to do this and accepting this is our struggle made the whole thing more, my energy was calm and smooth in there. He didn't sense any uptightness and he surprised me. He got the IV with no problem. He got the procedure with no problem. He even came home, and that evening he ate more than he normally eats. I made him some soft risotto and he ate 2 bowls, maybe 3, which is crazy for him because he doesn't eat that much normally. And so that was a win. It doesn't mean it'll always be a win. And he was like doing okay last night. We're only in day 2, so wish me luck. But I did check on him this morning and his cheeks looked like chipmunks, but he was still sleeping. I just want to make sure he was alive before I came in here to record a podcast, because I was like, I'll just be sitting here recording a podcast, and what if he's not alive? Yeah, I obviously have anxiety, but he still seems he's doing okay. I mean, I know I've got quite a few more days, but so far so good. And I'm accepting whatever is whatever will be. And that's sometimes a hard thing for us to show up. The other thing that I've moved into, and I talked about this, I think, on the last episode, is the acceptance that he didn't want to travel. And we just got back from a trip to Montreal that we had already scheduled. And I realized me pushing him to go on these trips where he gets so stressed that his immune system gets compromised, and then he gets angry with me for forcing him. Why am I doing that? So that I can feel like a good mom, so that I can feel like I'm not leaving him out, so I could travel and do the things I want to do. And when I slowed down, again, the 2 paces ahead, when I stopped walking and I looked behind and I looked at him from his perspective, I realized he doesn't want to travel right now. And he doesn't mind that we travel. And he's perfectly happy with me having a respite provider come and watch him. And it was my story that was causing the problem, not his. And so when I met him where he was at and went on the trip without him, took the hit because I'd already bought the tickets, he was very happy when I got back. How was your trip? I had a great time. It was good. And that was building trust and communication with him, that I listen to him and I honor what he wants. And it doesn't mean that I don't always coax and sometimes gently force my kids to do things they don't want to do. That's not what I'm saying. But when it's a bridge too far and they're not capable of doing something that you want them to do, honoring that, it is showing love and support. And my other girls had a great trip. It was very relaxing for me to be able to not have to worry about him struggling and being so angry about being there. What was the point? And then he actually came back and said, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to travel ever. Because I said, oh, it's going to be sad that you're not going to travel with us. And he corrected me and he said, it doesn't mean I'm not going to travel ever, just not right now. And that was a very mature thing to say. And on the flip side too, him being independent, because there's only someone here just kind of watching him. He was, he's 15. He was doing his own thing. I think gave him a sense of independence, of I don't need my mom hovering over me, that I can manage my own time and manage my own food and manage my sleep cycle. Not good. But that independence and that trust of, I'm going to honor that for you. I'm not going to leave you home alone because you're only 15, but I'm going to honor that space. And you have to interface with a stranger at our house. She's not a stranger, but someone you're not comfortable with. I'm going to get out of the way of this and I'm going to let you handle yourself. And so sometimes when we slow down our pace and we look behind us, we look over our shoulder and we look at where our child is at and we honor that, that does slowly build motivation in a gentle sort of way. They start to move and their steps start. Now, maybe they won't, because we're not doing it to manipulate them to move. We're doing it to honor them where they're at because it's objectively where they're at. But I do want to say that sometimes I see their feet moving when I slow down or when I stop moving. It's something to think about. Well, I hope that you're finding this podcast helpful. I do appreciate it when you let me know and hit a star on iTunes, or I don't know why I said iTunes. Is anyone Apple Podcast or wherever? Somebody did tell me they are leaving comments on Spotify, and I didn't realize you can leave comments on Spotify, but I do not see those. I have to do a little bit more investigating on how to see that because I don't have a Spotify account. And when I look up my podcast, it doesn't show me comments. So To be continued. I will have to figure out how to do that. But if you are enjoying the podcast and you want to leave a review, I do greatly appreciate that. And if I find one, I will read it. Actually, I just see one that I was going to read for you. I want to thank eSour21, who wrote Superpower. As a parent with an older teen who is facing all the challenges of the senior year of high school and recently being diagnosed with OCD, which is a gift to finally know and have a plan, but has a long road ahead, to say I felt overwhelmed and helpless would be an understatement. This was something I couldn't fix, and I had a hard time wrapping my head around it all. While I'm fortunate enough to have found a therapy community that includes me in my daughter's therapy session, I feel like a piece of the puzzle was missing. This podcast has hands down motivated me and invigorated me in just this first week that I've started listening. Most importantly, I feel empowered, and as I start incorporating even small changes in communication and approaching this, I can see the benefits and don't feel like things are out of control. Thank you for unleashing my superpower. Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that review. Thank you so much for leaving that. And I'm glad that you found your superpower. And I actually just read this. I didn't read it before I recorded this episode. So I feel like this episode kind of speaks to what you're talking about, that we can't fix this. And it's so hard to accept that. But when you accept that and you realize what you can do, and that there is a lot in your lane that you can do, it does feel like unleashing your superpower. So thank you for reading a review. And maybe if you write a review, I'll be reading yours next time. I will check out Spotify and try to figure out where I can read that. And don't forget to find the sparkle in everything you do. I'll talk to you again next Tuesday. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the AT Parenting Survival Podcast. To get additional support raising a child with anxiety or OCD, visit Natasha's online school of on-demand classes at atparentingsurvivalschool.com.